Hi, and welcome back to the end of this week's FootyNotes podcast. My name is Bonisile, and yeah, I've had quite a week in my own personal world, getting ready for the beginning of the new school year, and other things just around home happening. Lots of stuff happening in my home life, and getting updates from home in South Africa. I live in the US, but all my family is in South Africa. So that's been quite an interesting way of navigating life over the last 8 years, I would say now. Yeah. Anyway, I'm doing okay though. It's been quite an interesting week. With Arsenal, lots of news coming up, and especially in the last day and a half, lots of stuff coming out. And finally, man, they've done it with Ben White. I mean, it was expected by many to actually happen, but you never know with these things. You never know with these things. And as you will already know by now, that Granit Xhaka has been nearing a move to Roma almost the whole summer, before the Euros, during the Euros, after the Euros, which he's been out of the Euros for a couple of weeks, 3-4 weeks now maybe. And today news break out, he might be given a new contract by Arsenal, or a contract extension by a further 2 years, right? So yeah, with transfers, I mean, these are the sort of things that you can never be sure until you see the player on the Arsenal official website, or you see Arteta coming out to talk, or Edu coming out to talk. It's never over the line. So I'm really thrilled. The last time I spoke a lot about my belief in Ben White's potential and his ability. To me, man, he's a unique kind of player, but he is also like a player that represents the new age of football. He's this kind of defender. He's one of the few who can do both defend and attack. But a lot of the time, when you listen to people talk about him, they're talking about his work on the ball. So, it's not very typical when you hear people talk about a defender, and the first thing they praise about the defender is how good the defender is with his decision making, good at dribbling, good with distribution, and the calmness that he gives teammates around him through the confidence that he oozes. I don't know if he's a vocal leader. I haven't seen him as in that way, because he did play with bigger characters at Brighton at the back. Webster. And Dunk, and before Dunk, there was another tall guy there. I forget his name now. Duffy, I think. Duffy was his name, I think, or Duff. But anyway, like, I know Dunk for sure, the captain, and then Webster. Like a lot, like guys that are big characters. And then you have him at Leeds. He was still a youngster a couple of seasons ago there. So he definitely has shown enough with his physical play, right? Like with his ability on the ball, but maybe he will develop that other side of his leadership, as a vocal leader. But my God, I'm so happy. I can't speak highly enough of my happiness of this deal. I'm just, unlike other people who think it's an overpay, which it probably could be argued very easily that it is an overpay, but for me, it's always about, as the buying club, what do you think you are getting with what you're paying? Arsenal hasn't had a defender like this kid for a very long time, in terms of like a defender with with an assurance on the ball. I mean, Koscielny was sort of like this, but not even. And he was one of our best defenders in the last decade. Almost like a blend of Koscielny and Mertesacker, but I think he's, to me, by the time he hits 26, 27, he'll be a better defender than both of them. I don't want to compare him with legends and greats, because I don't want to be blasphemous here. But I do want to just express how happy I am that Arsenal have signed this kid. And I think he will mesh well with, I know as an Arsenal fan, I shouldn't be maybe talking a lot about Manchester United defenders, but like I do think with him and Gabriel, like we could have probably a Rio Ferdinand with Vidic kind of pairing, which would be awesome. Or even for England, Rio Ferdinand with John Terry type. I think he's more of a Rio type defender, or if you want to go even further back with Manchester United, with Brucey being the bruiser and Pallister being, the defender who's kind of like Rolls Royce type, right? So, I mean, I really, really can't speak highly enough of this kid. I think he's going to make Arsenal fans really, really happy on most days. And it was nice listening to him talk as well. He was talking to at Frimpong on the Arsenal website for an interview. Really chill kid. And the one thing that he went to is in terms of like what he will bring, and which is going to bring, he's going to bring quite a bit, I imagine. But the one thing that he chose to go to was to say, I will, when the going gets tough in games, I'm paraphrasing here, I will lead, I will step up and kind of like help the team out in the difficult moments. I liked that he backed himself to do that. And to be honest, like, it's nice to hear an Arsenal player, talk about that, because we've been accused, and most of the time rightfully, of being flat track bullies, guys who are happy when things are going well, including our captain. He's been accused of this, Aubameyang, that when things are going well, he's great, but like when it gets tough, he's not necessarily the guy that's going to lift the players out of that. So with that said, like, I can talk about this Ben White thing for a long time, but yeah, that's the best thing that happened. And then on the other side, of Arsenal, like it's a lot of possible moves out, but today there's also been two players who, for most of the summer, actually since the spring, they've been reported by many people, including the reliable Fabrizio Romano, as well as David Ornstein, saying, David Ornstein said that Bellerin would most likely be leaving Arsenal, and Romano the same, and many others. It's been well documented that Hector Bellerin has been looking for a fresh challenge, and an opportunity to go somewhere else. He's been at Arsenal for nearly a decade now, thereabouts. And Inter Milan, like Roma, have been kind of pussyfooting around giving Arsenal what Arsenal wants for the player. It seems like the wrestle there has been that Arsenal are okay with giving Inter the loan that they want, but Arsenal want an obligation to buy, so that even if Hector's contract runs down to about a year left, the fee for the permanent transfer is agreed now. Inter want the loan with an option, which gives them the opportunity to go into a fresh negotiation later on. If they want to get Hector, then Hector would have 1 year left, would make him cheaper. So you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, fuck you, Inter. I'm very happy that Arsenal are doing this. I know a lot of Arsenal fans would like to see Hector Bellerin out, and they would like to see Xhaka out. However, deals need to be made, and deals don't work like that. And I'm actually quite happy that these guys are not going to necessarily do what we as fans want, but are actually going to see what works best for the club. And as much as I would have liked to see both go, and they may end up still going, I like that Arsenal are flexing a little bit of muscles here and swinging their dick around a little bit, because Roma offered something, apparently, like what I'm seeing is that they offered something around 12 million euros rising to 15, and Arsenal were looking for somewhere between 18 to 20. So, for clubs of that size, if you really want the player, you fucking pay. Just like Arsenal now are going to pay Brighton £50 million, right? So the buying club needs to eventually make a decision about how badly do you want the player. And 20 million euro for Granit Xhaka, we just got Sambi Lokonga for something similar, right? So Granit Xhaka is at this day in age, he's a much better player than Sambi Lokonga. Even though I want Lokonga at Arsenal, don't get me wrong, I want the kid, and I think he's got a higher ceiling than Xhaka potentially. But he's right today. Xhaka is a better midfielder than him, and Xhaka just showed in the Euros that he still can play and lead, and he's a good player. I mean, he may not necessarily be the best thing for Arsenal moving forward, and so I'm not saying yay and doing backflips and somersaults and things because he's likely to stay. But I'm also not going to lose my shit because he might stay, because he actually, at this late stage in the transfer window, he might be the best option we have. He might be the best option Arsenal has when it comes to not being fucked. Because if you sell Xhaka for 12 to 15 million euros to Roma, you're basically doing them a favor. Because to replace him, I mean, you Leon, who apparently Arsenal are interested in Bruno Guimaraes, I think that's his name, Bruno Guimaraes. He's out at the Olympics with Brazil right now. Central midfielder, really good player. And Arsenal has been linked with him before he moved to France from Brazil. Lyon want to even start negotiating. They thinking somewhere around £40 million or 40 million euros. Sorry. So if you sell Xhaka for 15, you're still gonna have to pay so much more to replace him, no matter who you're gonna replace him with. I don't know if the 20 million euro or so that's being reported for Aouar, if that's an accurate fee. Now that would be a deal, right? Like I would be more than happy to see Arsenal do that. But I do think, some of these clubs, especially these Italian clubs, man, like they are on some fucking pay as you go, or loan with an obligation, loan with take forever to pay a fucking fee. I mean, they are making Arsenal look like they are run by an Arab state in terms of the way the deals that they're negotiating out of Italy at the moment. So yeah, Granit Xhaka and Hector Bellerin. I mean, more so Xhaka has been loudly reported today that it looks like Arsenal are gonna just offer him a deal. I trust Amy Lawrence if she's saying Arsenal are gonna offer Xhaka a deal, and then after she was the first one to release the news on the Athletic. But then a few other people, I saw Fabrizio Romano, who he's the most kind of aggressive on the reporting of many of these things, and most of the time he's on the point. He's on point with it. So I do think when some of the people who have been reporting it, I think I'm not sure if James Bench said something. He might have. A lot of the people that I look to get Arsenal news are saying Granit Xhaka for sure looks like he will be offered a deal extension by Arsenal for two more years to 2025. Now, I don't know if he's going to accept. Hopefully he will, because, like Arsenal, he knows the club, he knows the situation. He doesn't need too long to fit in there. And it does sound like Arsenal will offer him better terms in terms of money. If he might get a bit more in terms of his income if he stays at Arsenal. Now, I don't know if he gets to take more home, because the taxes in England can be a real bitch. So we'll see how that one falls. But it does seem like Granit Xhaka will stay. As for Hector Bellerin, it's unclear if he will stay or not, but it seems like it could go that way too, which then leaves with a very interesting situation at right back. I'm going to pause right here just for a quick break, and then after the break, we will talk a little bit more about the right back situation, because there's a very fascinating thing unfolding there. Hey guys, if you're thinking about a way to start your own podcast, I would encourage you to check out Anchor if you haven't heard of it. It's a free platform where you can create your own podcast, distribute it, having all the editing tools for free, all in one place. Check it out. Download the Anchor app for free on your iPhone or Google phone, whatever phone you have. If it's a smartphone, you can find the app by downloading it, or go to anchor.fm to get started. Check it out. Cheers. And we're back. As for the right back situation, this is one of those positions as well. You know, if Xhaka stays in midfield, that means Arsenal then, can kick that can down the road. And to be quite honest, I would be very okay with that, because it would then allow Arsenal to focus their energy in a position that I think is likely to be expensive if they can't fucking make a decision about Joe Willock really quickly, and especially if they're looking to play a 4-2-3-1 or instead of a 4-3-3, they do need to figure out that creative support for Emil Smith-Rowe. Bukayo Saka could be a temporary solution from time to time at number 10, and Willian could be a support there. So if they want to go with that, Saka, Willian as backups at 10 for ESR, I wouldn't be livid, but I wouldn't be celebrating it. I do like Bukayo Saka, and I think he could probably do as good a job as anybody else deputizing there for Emil. But then who would play on the left if he's going to be deputizing for Emil? Is Emil then on the bench or playing on the left? And Martinelli is going to probably have he's growing into his man body a little bit more. I'm seeing him with the Brazil Olympic team. He looks good. Hopefully he doesn't get any more injuries as he gets stronger. He could play on the left, I guess, and Balogun could play on the left. And Nketiah could, I don't think he cuts it to play on the left. If he want to extend his contract, I think Arsenal should do whatever they can to sell him, even if it's for fucking £2 or £5 million. So just sell at all cost, get something for him. But the right back situation is the fascinating one, because Arsenal have currently, it's almost become what the centre back position used to be. So Arsenal have 4 players in the squad who have played right back for the club. Callum Chambers, who I think is at the top of the list to play as a starter against Brentford. Cedric Suarez, who I think is number 2, depending on what happens with Hector Bellerin. Hector Bellerin and Ainsley Maitland-Niles, who sees himself as a central midfield option, but Arsenal have, across several different managers now, have used him at fullback more so than in midfield. Wenger used him a lot more at fullback than in midfield, even though he did give him one of his earlier and best games in an Arsenal shirt at Manchester United, playing against Paul Pogba in midfield. But he hasn't seen a lot of time in midfield for Arsenal first team, even in the Europa League games. And then Unai Emery used him mainly as a fullback. Freddie, I don't remember, because that was just a couple of weeks, so I'm not going to even count Freddie as one of the coaches. But I know Mikel has definitely used him as a wing-back and as a fullback. So there you have 4 players. One doesn't see himself long-term in that position, even though, he got an England call-up. in that position, and he would probably be one of our better ones if he was just open-minded and be okay to be used in that position. Good athlete, young, grew up in the Arsenal system. So for me, he would be a solution for this year for sure. Him and Chambers. If we went into this league season with Ainsley and Chambers as the top two right backs, Cedric can go to fucking Turkey. It sounds like there's interest in Turkey in him. Then maybe you get a little bit of change for him. I don't think Turkish clubs have a lot of money right now, though, so it probably would be a loan fee. Bellerin could also then go to Inter, especially if Arsenal is able to protect his value by doing like a sign and then you go. Like sign an extension by a year or two, protect the value if Inter wants to fuck around at the end of next summer. At the end of this coming summer, in 2022, at least there's still 2 years left in Hector's contract at Arsenal. At which point Arsenal could still command a respectable fee for him, you know. But if Hector doesn't go, you know, he is a homegrown player. So I would then imagine that Arsenal would look to offload Cedric, you know, because Callum Chambers probably won't go because he covers more than just right back. He can play at centre back, and he's a homegrown player. Ainsley as well, homegrown, and he plays multiple positions. You know, he's a kind of a Swiss Army knife kind of player. You need at least one or two Swiss Army knives in the squad. And then you think, yeah, Cedric in that picture doesn't look good. Cedric and Chambers look like number 1 and 2 if you are of the point of view that Ainsley and Hector are out of the door. And that's very likely scenario. But that story percolating at right back is a bit of an interesting one. And thankfully, I don't see much else besides right back and the goalkeeper that's going to be a lot of headaches. I know it would be nice to get another player next to Thomas Partey, but if Xhaka stays, that becomes less urgent. Even though that player wouldn't hurt if Arsenal got him this year, it becomes less urgent. Then the urgency moves on to figuring out how do you plug a team and keep the team strong through the winter months, when injuries could start kicking in addition to losing our top African players in Pepe, Aubameyang, and Thomas Partey, as well as ELNENY. ELNENY would be less of a loss because I don't anticipate that he will start as many games as the other three. I don't know if I'm missing out any other African player. Yeah. It's just those three, I think, because I think those three will start most games when fit. Partey will start when fit. AUBA will start most games when fit, as well as Pepe. I think Pepe, even though he started a little bit on and off whenever Arteta came in as the coach, and then Emery as well didn't rate him. So Pepe took basically two kind of like full seasons, even though those were both weird seasons in that we lost a coach. He had like 3 different coaches in his first season, just acclimating. It was a weird one, and then there was also COVID in that first season. So he had a weird first season, which I think could be forgiven by those who feel generous. Second season had a bit of a weird start, but then kicked on. After he got sent off at Leeds in the fall, kind of like early winter months, he had definitely, once the Smith Rowe introduction into the first team happened in late December on Boxing Day, he didn't even play in that game that Smith Rowe made his real entry into the team. It was Xhaka on the right, Smith Rowe in the middle behind Lacazette, and Martinelli on the left. But then in January, Pepe just started playing on the left to begin. That's how he actually started to get some consistent minutes in the team. He was playing on the left I remember him banging one at Southampton and then banging another one at Wolves in a loss. And he was just like really doing really well on the left, and then found a way as Bukayo Saka was starting to fade and get a little bit more tired, having had so many minutes on his legs. Pepe then found a way back on the right, and he just started scoring even more consistently and being a threat more consistently. Doing well at Leicester, created a penalty there. And I remember in one of the games, I think it was Burnley or something, where he had his volley with the right foot. I mean, he played really well. He did well at West Ham as a sub, crossing with his right foot for Laka's header. So he definitely is one of the players that I'm looking to for this season to lead us more than AUBA and Laka. Even though I hope those two will continue to be themselves, especially AUBA. Laka was our leading goal scorer last season, but I don't expect Laka to do much better than he did last year. I think he can match it and maybe score 2 or 3 more goals at that. But he definitely, if we get a lot of penalties, then Laka will get a lot of goals. Especially he's a designated penalty taker. He should be, but between him and Pepe, they're both very good in penalties. So yeah, Granit Xhaka staying, I'm not too worried about it. I'm not too happy about it, but I do think the club is doing the right thing by not letting Roma bully them there. And I do hear that if Inter Milan wants to loan Hector Bellerin, Arsenal are looking to first extend him and then ask for a very expensive loan fee. So if that's what they do, then I'm game. I'm down. Edu, Richard, Dick Garlic, do your thing, boys. I'm really happy to see this face in terms of what Arsenal are putting out as far as the way they're doing business. It is moving at a very slow glacial pace as far as making sales. That's proved far more difficult. And I don't think it's about to get better. I think there's going to be a lot of players who will be at Arsenal at the beginning of the Premier League season who will not be there at the end of August. So all of these question mark players, Lucas Torreira, I don't even know what's going to happen with him. He's not even back for training yet. Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Joe Willock, Eddie Nketiah, Reece Nelson. I've just counted 5. Hector Bellerin, 6. And there are a few more there who may be a surprise. Because part of the problem with these transfer market situations is that the players you want to see leave are not the players other people want. They use, for example, Smith Rowe, getting a couple of bids made for him by Aston Villa earlier on in the summer. That's the kind of player that people would come in for, right? Bukayo Saka, people could make bids for that, or people could make bids for Martinelli. Those are the players we want to keep. So not just because we want what we want, other clubs are not going to be there to do us favors. So I think Arsenal are doing the right thing, as long as, hopefully, if they're going to be loaning players, hopefully they're going to get good loan fees and be able to extend their contract time, because Lucas Torreira has been at Arsenal for 3 years. I think he's only got 2 more years left on his contract. So if you loan him out this year, he's got 1 year left, and you're probably going to make a loss on Torreira anyway because of the emotional mental health stuff that he has recently even opened up and spoken about. So I think Torreira is, transfers are just a risk, and I feel sorry for the guy, but transfers are not guaranteed. Just like anything in business, right? You take some chances and then you get rewarded, but sometimes you make a loss. It's like the stock market. You could buy a short thing of a player who's so talented, gets a leg break or an ACL, and then he's not the same anymore. Like Hector Bellerin is such a beautiful example of that. He was a very good long-term project. Came in, burst into their first team, and got Debussy out the team. Debussy, who we had just bought after France played in the World Cup in 2014. He got a freakish injury in his first few games, or first game, I don't remember, but like very early on, got an injury. Little kid Bellerin comes in, kept him out of the team, and Debussy has never been Debussy ever again. He plays now in Ligue 1 for fucking Saint Etienne the last time I saw. So none of these things are guarantees, but we just got to keep plugging away and see where we can assert ourselves into an advantageous position. And sometimes we will lose some. Torreira is a good reminder of that. And we will lose some players as well for nothing. So we're not going to always get what we want, but like I do like the what I'm picking up to be the strategic vibe, that the negotiators and the technical team are putting forward. So let's see what happens. I'm curious to see what happens in the game against Chelsea. I'll be speaking about that game in the next pod, because I've been ignoring some of the other games. Like I've been watching them, but like trying not to talk too much about them because the teams have been jumbled up. But I think this game coming up and the one against Tottenham are probably going to tell us more about what the club, what Arteta specifically is thinking with regards to the beginning of the season and like what his team is going to most likely be. I can't imagine that the team will change too drastically from the next two games, between the next two games and the Brentford game, because these are the guys who've been in camp working. Unless he does. Arteta is always confusing when it comes to picking teams, but I do think even he would want to reward the guys who've been in training for the longest time. But that remains to be seen. Of course, Ben White, is not his fault that he wasn't there. So Ben White could probably play in that Brentford game. But the rest, I expect to see a lot of the guys who've been in preseason. With that said, thank you very much for listening. And I hope you guys will have yourselves a very good weekend. Cheers. Thank you so much for your support. And I'll see you on your next one. Bye-bye.